this is one of the most horrifying stories I've ever heard, but there's a cautionary tale here. The title of this, Houston Crime Files. Woman who got from pastor speaks for the first time. Buckle up. There's some adult explicit content in here, but this is
darkness.
All right, go ahead.
Sometimes God will use people to help other people.
Yeah.
And sometimes he will use what is not always going to be pretty. You know, it's not always going to look good. But I'm willing.
Jeez. Poor lady.
I don't even know what's going on here.
Oh, it's
This
bad.
week, we have an exclusive tell-all. The woman who got her from a Houston pastor is telling her story. A judge ordered...
My impression of this, this got to be some like mom and pop shop, storefront, small size church pastor. No. No.
So, do we know this?
It's one of the biggest churches in Houston, fam.
Pastor Ralph Douglas West II to pay this victim $2.45 million in damages after a jury found that he gave her. He's a pastor at the Church Without Walls. This is him.
Just because we have been saved does not mean you no longer need to hear the gospel. The Christian faith is not a sprint, but a marathon.
You know, sometimes,
Now, the Church Without...
sometimes I be wonder, like dudes that have stuff like that, is he kind of preaching to himself, low key?
Oh.
You know?
Well, sometimes the
We
pastor...
need the gospel.
You know, sometimes the pastors say, and trust me, this is not just to you guys. This is for me. So if you guys think I'm just preaching to you, no, this is for me too. And I'm like, hey man, sometimes I don't want it to be.
I don't want it to be for you, bro.
Yeah, I think you should have this.
You should have this figured out.
Yeah, you master this a little bit.
Go ahead.
Walls. It's a Houston megachurch with more than 24,000 members that was founded by West's dad. Now, while spreading that good word, he was also spreading disease. His victim, Denitra KD, is finally ready to tell her story right here exclusively on Fox 26 Crime Files. Denitra KD, thank you so much for being here. I know that this cannot be an easy thing to do after a couple years of absolute chaos in your life. So let's just start at the beginning. Back in 2017, I know that you say West reached out to you on Facebook. Let's start there. What happened?
Yeah, back in 2017, I had received several notifications from him. Some of them were like pokes, things of that nature. I eventually responded, and then, you know, from there, he introduced himself. I didn't know of him. I didn't know of anything that he did, didn't know of the ministry. And then that's when he told me, you know, he'd been watching me for a while and that he was a fan of mine, and we kind of just conversed.
Hold on. Watching you for a while?
What kind of content she do?
Red flag number 1.
Yeah, she better be
I've
a
been
content creator.
watching you for a while.
She better be a content creator.
We kind of just conversed and went from there.
Yeah, so just kind of an online back and forth relationship. When did it turn from that into a physical relationship?
We conversed via social media, I'll say about a month. And then within that month's time, he wanted to exchange and talk more telecommunication, phone, you know.
Yeah.
So from just the social media, we ended up having telephone conversations. And then from there, we started dating, and we dated about 2 years.
And so while y'all were talking, you said you didn't know he was a pastor or anything, but obviously during that time, you figured that out and you ended up attending a church service. Was the fact that he was a man of God, was that part of what drew you to him? Are you strong in your faith?
So I am strong in my faith. My family I came from a very Christian background. I did not know he was a pastor prior to him, you know, reaching out
And everything, yeah.
So we learned about each other over the course of time. I'm used to being in ministry, and so I won't say, you know, that drew me to him because he, you know, my background is ministry, so I'm not, you know, it was like what it is.
Yeah.
What it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So this dude reaches out to her. They start talking.
Pokes on Facebook.
They start pokes on Facebook. They start dating. Red flag number 1. I've been watching you. I've been keeping up with you. That's red flag number 2. Number 1. Red flag number 2 is he's a pastor, but he's romantically pursuing her, and clearly boundaries get crossed. So a pastor who does not want to be celibate. That's a huge red flag.
Yeah.
Even if you're struggling, there should still be clear boundaries and lines around that.
Yeah.
right? And so that doesn't get that to me is pretty rough. And in her background, I mean, clearly she has some background in ministry, so she says, and the fact that she would then continue on in a relationship being sexually immoral with this gentleman is also like, that's the cautionary tale of this aspect. Even though he's quote unquote a pastor, and all this kind of, just because somebody's a pastor, just because he's a quote unquote man of God, that doesn't mean he can't give you something, right? And especially how prevalent herpes is nowadays. You're talking, somebody in the chat said 1 out of 4 people in the U.S. have some form of herpes. So do you think requiring pastors to be married would minimize thirsty pastors? Maybe he was divorced. Maybe he was married and divorced. I don't know enough about this dude, but I do think that I'm personally not going to the church of a single pastor who's the lead pastor. I'm not, right? That's just me and my convictions. You want to do that, you can, but I'm not doing that.
It almost gives you like a sense of trust in someone
Yes.
when you have similar backgrounds and you
Correct.
believe in the same things.
Correct.
And so,
Pause it. Wouldn't believing in the same things also mean that we're believing that we're not going to have sex until we get married? Isn't that what believing in the same? So even if you slipped up, hypothetically, you dated for a year, you slipped up, wouldn't you then also say, okay, gosh darn it, we messed up. We're having better boundaries, right? Because they have a whole conversation about this. And it gets worse, by the way. This gets substantially worse. Go ahead.
around that time, like in 2017, is that when you became, the relationship turned sexual? Y'all started having intercourse?
I would say somewhere around there, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't recall the dates exactly, but yeah.
Yeah. And so it was a real relationship. You guys
Yes,
were
we had
together.
actually dated,
Yeah.
and then from there, yes.
Yeah. And so we do actually have a soundbite from his deposition
Okay.
that he gave.
Yeah,
he
his
said
whole
that he
deposition
never
of this.
recalled having a conversation with you about STIs or any diseases at all. We'll go ahead and go to that soundbite.
Do you recall whether you told her during the spring of 2017 that you did not have any sexually transmitted diseases?
I don't recall telling her that.
Do you recall her asking you about that?
No.
Okay, so he says,
So she claims they had a whole conversation about that. And to me, I just go, what are y'all doing? Dating, having conversations
About STDs.
about STDs, which is clearly leading to intercourse.
Yes, if you're clearing your partner for STDs,
That's awful.
yeah, that's something that like you shouldn't really have to ask.
Yeah.
Like if you're actually dating in a Christian relationship, you should be like, oh man, we're not having sex until we get married, obviously, but like at some point I have to disclose this. The person that you're dating shouldn't even be like,
Right.
oh, by the way,
Right.
you got any STDs?
Keep going.
that y'all never had the conversation about STIs. Did you have the conversation about STIs?
Yes, we had the conversation. He said he didn't recall, and during that deposition, he almost didn't recall anything. But yes,
Yeah.
we definitely we exchanged morals, we exchanged beliefs, and then we had those conversations.
Yeah, just like any couple does.
Correct.
And I will say you are right about the deposition. I think every question asked, nearly every question asked, he said he didn't recall.
Correct, yeah.
So take me to the point where you realized you had contracted an STI.
Okay. So one thing about me, I kind of know my body, and if something within my health is out of the norm, I could pretty pinpoint that.
Yeah.
So after one of our, course of events, I started to notice that something just was not right.
And how long had y'all been like sexually
What do you mean by that?
active at this point? Like, had it been a while?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was someone who you really felt like you trusted.
Yeah, it was
and
just him, and
Yeah.
I was in a relationship with him. Yeah.
Yeah, not even a second thought about it.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. And so go on. So you
Yeah, so I
started
noticed,
feeling,
something wasn't right within a matter of days. And so I immediately made an appointment. And while waiting for my appointment, I even informed him, something is just not right,
Yeah. Just like you would with a boyfriend.
Yeah. And so after going to the doctor, they were able to determine by blood work that I was recently exposed and that I had the antibodies in my system.
Wow. What was that like for you? I mean, what was your reaction?
I was blank. I was scared because I didn't know exactly what all come with that. I didn't know what to
Yeah.
expect. I didn't know how it would affect my life. And then I just felt very, shamed, kinda. It was just very uneasy. During that time, I was into modeling, and so I wasn't a person that had self-esteem issues at all.
Yeah,
So during that little period of time, that did affect me mentally, emotionally,
imagine.
and so yeah.
Yeah. And did you also have a sense of betrayal? Like, did you immediately know who had done this to you?
I knew it was him.
Yeah.
At that moment, you know, I knew, okay, you know, I need to go talk to him and let him know this is what is going on with me.
Yeah.
And so when I went to have that conversation with him, it was at that moment of that conversation, that's when I learned that he knew he had it and he had failed to tell me.
This is a sickness of the highest order.
Okay, so it's one thing to not be celibate, which, by the way, if people just waited to have sex until they were married and then only had sex with their spouses, 99% of this would all be alleviated.
Yep.
But beyond that, this dude knew, refused to tell her, and continued to have unprotected sex with her as a pastor.
That's not nothing. As a pastor.
As a pastor, preaching at one of the biggest churches in Houston.
I wonder how he thought it was going to play out, though.
So listen.
So did he disclose that to you? He told you that he knew he had it previously?
Yes, he told me, I asked him, I said, so where did it come from? And he told me it came from his son's mom.
So he knew it came
you know,
from
I
his
don't know
son's mom. So he had a kid with a different woman, and he knew it came from his son's mom. And he told her that.
My God.
Yeah.
After the fact.
After the fact. After he gave it to her.
Oh.
They're not where he, you know, that's just what he told me, and that he did know he had it, and that, you know, he felt shamed and didn't know how I would respond to it.
I'm shocked this isn't a crime. Isn't this a crime?
It's on crime files. I think it's civil, not.
If you know
criminal.
you have something and you withhold that information, you pass it on. I think with HIV, that's a crime.
Yeah, I think it depends how deadly the.
Yeah.
And that's all he had to say for himself?
Yeah, it was not much of a react. Like, I'm sorry, like I'm crying when I'm telling him this, and he was just kind of, I'm like, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you had a million thoughts swirling through your head. Like you said, you don't know what this comes with. You don't know what your future looks like. And now this changes the trajectory of all of your future partners.
Right.
And do you feel like he had any empathy at all?
No, he did not. It was even at one point, I started like just like freaking out a little bit and was like, what do we do? Like, what is, like, you knew about this and you didn't tell me. And now how do I move on from it? And he was like, well, you know, you tied to this now. Like, just very cocky and.
Ooh.
Darkness.
Tied to this now.
Yeah.
That's terrifying, honestly. Almost like he knew what he had done and he expected you to eventually find out.
Yeah. And
Oh
he
my
just kept
goodness.
asking, you know, what do you want? What do you want? Like, and I'm like, what do I want? How do you ask somebody, what do they want after you have just done this knowingly to them? You know, I don't know what I want. I want my health. I would have liked to have had the choice to have chosen to, you know, continue the relationship with you. I would have.
I've known people who one person was in the world, they had a really rough sexual history. They meet somebody in the church, they start dating, they disclose this, and the person then has the ability to move on in the relationship if they want to. And the reality is, if you move on in a relationship, usually you open yourself up to the possibility that if when you get married, when you have sex, you will pass it on to your partner, potentially, right? And so, what are you looking up?
The symptoms of herpes.
Well, if you're taking medication for it, there are no symptoms that you're not visible. Excuse me, not visible symptoms.
Interesting, but like, so I always heard that cold sores were technically herpes as well. But
I've heard that. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, I maybe they're different factors. Do we have any like nurses up in the chat right now or doctors? Because like you don't have to take medication to not get cold sores. It's usually from I don't know, it's from like sticking a dirty finger in the back of your molars to pick out some food or something.
Yikes.
Disgusting folk.
I don't have cold sores, nor do I get cold sores.
I preferred you be upfront with me, but you took that away from me. So I don't know how to answer. What do you want? You know, he just kept asking, like, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to give you? What do you want? Like, how can we, you know?
Yeah, that's really, it's a scary thing to have to go through.
Yes.
And when did you decide that you were going to seek legal action, and what kind of conversation was that like with him?
He had started, during the course of me finding out, me discussing it with him, and him informing me that he knew, he started doing like bribes and just trying to convince me to stay with him and not to leave him. And, you know, he started saying things like, Christians don't take Christians to court, things like that.
He quoting Paul.
Christians.
And he admits this in the deposition here.
Biblical things to try to manipulate me.
Like actual scripture. And I know that even in his deposition, he does acknowledge that he used scripture in that way. We actually have that soundbite as well. We'll go ahead and play that.
And didn't you also tell Ms. Cahey before filed suit that Christians don't take Christians to court?
I told her that's in scripture.
Straight narcissism, bruh.
I told her it's in the scripture.
Yeah, I told her. So anyway, what happened is
there.
she took him to court. 2020, it didn't get to court till 2023. As they're going to court, they offer $150,000. She rejects it. She sues. She wins. He owes her $2.3 million now, and unfortunately, she has not collected on any of them.
That's the thing about lawsuits, right? It's like you're not guaranteed. It's not just because you like sue for 2.3 doesn't mean.
I mean, the reality is he probably has some assets, and she could probably garnish his wages.
Gotcha.
Because
so she's getting something.
She's gonna get something.
And it's almost the concept of she's getting something for life until that's paid off. So if he doesn't make 2.3 million over a long enough time, then she's still got some sort of side in revenue for the rest of her life.
And the situation is super sad,
That's
man.
not okay. That's not okay.
But again, I think this is a caution tale. I'm not like shaming her and saying this is her fault. That's not what I'm saying. This dude should have disclosed that. But if you're going to pursue someone that is a Christian and a pastor and they're okay with casually having sex, like that should be a massive red flag. That should be a massive red flag. Hey, thank you so much for checking out the video. Comment down below and let me know what you think. And be sure to check out this video that YouTube is recommending just for you. Let me know if they nailed it. All right? I'll see you over there. Peace.